Thank you for pressing start on episode 11 of Underplayed, KZUM's indie video game podcast. Today we recap and reflect on the games of Season 1 and take a look ahead by planning our featured game roster for Season 2. I'm Bopo. Joining me, as always, my player 2, DiscoCola.
Hey, bud. This is going to be a long one. I'm excited to talk to you about Season 2, though.
Yes, this is a two-parter for episode 11. We have just completed 10 episodes of Underplayed over the past several months. It's been a journey. We've played a collective 31 games.
Yeah, dude.
Across all of the 10 episodes. And now we are meeting here for episode 11 to kind of put a milestone stake in the ground, look back at everything we've played so far. And this is meant to just kind of be an informal, messy, unprofessional discussion about what we really enjoyed from Season 1. We'll recap our ratings. We'll give some awards. And then part 2 of this episode, we'll be looking ahead to Season 2 and planning out what featured games we want to play.
Yeah.
So that'll be really fun. We have a whole queue of games that we need to vet out. So it will be a very interesting discussion as we work through that list, figure out what is even appropriate to play as a featured game, and then pick what games and what order we want to play them. So that'll be the last roughly half of this episode, maybe. Not sure how long each section will go. But we're glad, listeners, that you can hang out with us while we kind of celebrate what we've played here at the start. So for our Season 1 recap and reflection, that's what I've chosen to call this first part.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a fancier name, if you had an idea
It's
for what to call this.
SR1 ampersand R. It's the name of a Metroid planet. That's who cares?
I have no idea. We'll just call it Season 1 recap and reflection for now. But what we're going to do first, at a very superficial level, I want to recap our ratings that we gave to our secret games. So listeners, if this is your first time listening to an episode by chance, this might not be the best first episode to listen to, but how our show runs is each episode, we each pick a different secret indie game to play, and we play those in private. We don't tell each other what we're playing, and we prepare for our next episodes by playing those secret games, then coming and revealing to each other during our recording what we played. It's entirely a surprise to each other, and then we review what we played. That is usually followed up by a featured review of a game that we both agree to play ahead of time. So I want to run through those secret games we did for Season 1. DiscoCola, could you run through your secret games in sequential order and then what you rated each one? Could
Yes.
you do that?
Okay, so for episode 1, I played Forma 8. I gave that a 7.5. Episode 2 was Later Alligator with a 9. Episode 3, Machinarium with an 8. Episode 4, The Mummy Demastered with an 8.5. Episode 5, The Big Con with a 7.5. Episode 6, Transistor with an 8.5. Episode 7, House with an 8. Episode 8, Fury with an 8.5. Episode 9, Last Day of June with an 8. And Episode 10, also with an 8, Time Spinner.
My secret games for Season 1, Episode 1, Virginia. I rated it a 6. Episode 2, Art School. I rated it a 1.5. Episode 3, Maquette, I rated it a 7.5. Episode 4, Hawa, I rated it a 5.5. Episode 5, Jazz Punk, I rated it an 8. Episode 6, Super One More Jump, I rated it an 8. Episode 7, Sky, Children of the Light, I rated it a 4.5. Episode 8, The Gardens Between, I rated it an 8. Episode 9, Balthazar's Dream, I rated it a 3. And Episode 10, Ape Out, I rated it an 8. So now that we've recapped all those secret games, of all different subgenres within the indie umbrella. I want to see if you have any score observations, what you notice about these scores, maybe any regrets you have about scores you gave to your own secret games. Do you have any of those?
Yeah. Well, I was looking through this ahead of the recording, and I noticed that a lot of my scores are kind of samey, which, I knew would always probably be the case anyways. So I guess if I had regrets, especially compared to like some of the scores you've given, is that maybe I need to be a little bit more critical. I think I try to be, and you've used the word forgiving, and I think that's true. Just because like I've never made a game before, I don't know what goes into it, and I still had fun with all of these games to some degree, but the scores that are a little bit lower definitely reflect how I feel about those ones in relation to everything else. So I guess I would, if I could go back, maybe Forma 8 would be scored a little bit lower, and I might score Mummy Demastered and Last Day of June maybe like half a score higher, because those two in particular stand out a little bit more in my mind.
Yeah, I remember you saying Last Day of June made you kind of tear up by the end.
Absolutely.
Which
Yeah.
is, like, anytime a game can make you feel that way, that's really powerful.
Yeah, I think that game and like Outer Wilds especially, like those endings, I still think about them.
Cool. Yeah, some of these have had lasting effects on, our memories, how games will occupy our minds differently over time, and we just don't know that in the moment when we're scoring them always. I think that you're appropriately pointing out criticisms. I think it's just that when it comes to the scoring, I think it's just that the score maybe is more generous, but I think you do a fair job of pointing out your praises and your criticisms. So I've noticed that in all of our secret games segments, is that we both do a good job of doing that. I did notice, I calculated some averages for us for our secret games. Your average rating is an 8.15, and it does a weird decimal because that's what happens when you do an average with all these. My average rating is a 6. So mine's like over 2 points below yours. And I think that's just because I picked a few games that were really experimental that I guess I just weren't the right thing for me. But then also some games that just gave me some problems, games that just, I think, didn't live up to the promise of what they could have been. So I think I don't know that I would adjust a lot of these scores too much. Looking back over mine, the highest score I gave anything was an 8, and I actually gave an 8 out 4 different times.
Okay, yeah.
But an 8 for me is a really, really great game, and I think it's a really, really great game to you too. I think as you get to the higher end of the scale, the 8s to 9s to 10s, I think we're both in alignment on like how much those scores reflect how much we care about the games. But yeah, I had such a wild range. I don't know that I'll rate another game something as low as a 1.5 anytime soon, or maybe even a 3.
Well, and you played some games that had some like pretty severe performance issues. Like
I had brokenness in a lot of my games.
Like I struggled with the Big Con, where certain things just like didn't spawn, but I guess I didn't downgrade the score too much for that, and maybe I should have.
Yeah, and I don't want to trash any one game that much in this segment, but there was one game that technically just did not perform in a way that was functional. There was one game that I had to play on technically 3 different systems in the PlayStation ecosystem to get the Platinum Trophy, because I like to chase, we both like to chase the trophies in these games, or whatever achievement system we have, but primarily PlayStation trophies. And there was one that just gave me so many issues. I had to play it. It's a shorter game, so this might sound like a lot, but it wasn't as severe as other games. But I had to play it like 2 full times through, and then do like 5 partial playthroughs just to pop all the trophies because they're glitched. So a lot of those kinds of things. Some of the games I played had, like issues with the interface, like the pause menu was not functional, or just lacking in an amount of options, those kinds of things. So it was interesting to see like the wide range that I had, and then like the pretty close range that you had. But at the end of the day, I think we both played some games we really liked for secret games. Any other observations about secret games?
No, I think that's it. There's a I've never played so many games in my life. I think if you
in such a short time.
Yeah, I think if you took 2017 through 2019, I played probably the same amount of games that I played in the last couple months.
Right. And that probably has a lot of that has to do with just other things that have happened in your life in the last few years, just how busy you are.
Right. But just also just like this, having the motivation to try so many new things for a purpose.
Yes. And like having the biweekly recording schedules has really kicked things into gear. And like, I think doing this was always probably possible in my schedule. I just, again, didn't have that thing motivating me to do it. So we can now recap our featured games and what we rated them. So I can just quickly run through all of these. The way we did season 1 was a little bit, well, the way we kicked it off was a little bit different than what we'll do for successive seasons. So episode 1 actually had 2 featured games.
Mm-hmm.
We had 2 games that were cooperative in nature, and the 2 games are by Hazelight Studios, A Way Out and It Takes Two. Those were our 2 featured reviews for episode 1. It was really interesting to not only play both of them, but also compare and contrast them in our recording. And new listeners to the program might be curious as to why we picked an EA published set of games for, an indie video game podcast. But I think these 2 games represent an effort by EA to publish indie-like games, and they're definitely developed by smaller teams. And the nature of them, especially It Takes Two, being as cooperative as it is, I think it was just such a fitting set of 2 games to pick to start us off. So I'm still really glad we picked those, but listeners, if you've been curious as to why we picked 2 seemingly non-indie titles, those are kind of our defenses for why. But I think all of the games we picked after that for featured games are very much arguably indie in some way, either in the size of the teams that developed them or their budgets or, what have you. So episode 1, we had A Way Out, which you rated a 6. I rated a 5. We also had It Takes Two. You rated it a 9. I rated it an 8.5. Episode 2, our featured game, was Night in the Woods. We both rated it a 7.5. Episode 3 was Manifold Garden. We both rated it a 7. Episode 4 was Axiom Verge. You rated it a 7. I rated it a 5.5. Episode 5 was Bug Snacks. You rated it an 8.5. I rated it an 8. Episode 6 was Hades. You rated it a 9.5. I rated it a 9. Episode 7, Carrion. You rated it 9.5. I rated it 7.5. Episode 8, Hyperlight Drifter. You rated it our first 10. I rated it a 9. Episode 9, Before Your Eyes. You rated it a 7. I rated it an 8.5. Episode 10, Outer Wilds. You rated it an 8.5. I rated it a 9. So a lot of scores to take in there. What do you notice about the scores here for featured games? Any regrets?
I do have regrets. I think these scores reflect a little bit more critical opinions, at least from me, because you see a bigger variety of scoring here. I guess that if I had some regrets, I would say that I was a little bit too critical of Before Your Eyes. I guess in the recording that we did for that episode, I didn't really express really how many times I had to recalibrate my blinks, especially in like moments where the game asks you to keep your eyes closed. So I was sitting there trusting that the game was progressing, but not knowing because my eyes were closed. Yeah. And so that really took me out of some really critical moments. So maybe if I didn't have those speed bumps, I might have rated it a little bit higher. I still don't think I would change my score for it.
Do you think the positive stuff you got out of that game, the powerful emotions you got out of that game, have those outlasted your minor frustrations with some of the, using the webcam and stuff?
I don't think I can say that because I got taken out of a lot of those moments in the middle of those moments because of my frustrations with the technology and how they were holding me back a little bit. So,
for Before Your Eyes, I actually kind of regret not talking about some of the aspects about that game that astounded me, actually.
Mhm.
I think I could have given that game more praises in our review. Don't know that I would change my score, but I do regret not expounding on that game as much as I wanted to in our original recording.
Yeah.
So.
Other than that, let's see. Maybe I was also a little bit too critical on Night in the Woods. I don't know. I don't remember like what was holding me back other than just really disliking a couple of characters. And Axiom Verge. I think I was a little bit too generous with that.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I think about it, and maybe I bring this. I might talk about this a little bit more later, but I remember not having as much fun as I wanted to.
Yeah.
When I first got the game, and then again when we played it for the episode. So
Okay. For this one, I did average ratings again. Your average rating was 8.95. My average rating was 8.45. So we were closer here. I'm noticing a lot of scores in like the 8s and 7 range. We had our first 10 here, a couple 9.5s from you. So that helped bring up the average scores here. If I could redo a score, I'm looking through all these. I think I feel about the same for all of them, except maybe Hyperlight Drifter, I might bump down to an 8.5. I think I might have been just a tad generous with that one.
I wondered if maybe like part of that was just like, I know this is Disco's favorite game. I don't want to.
Right, maybe. But I think in the moment, I think that game really did occupy my mind for a solid few weeks after playing it. And the music stuck with me. The ending stuck with me much more than the very first time I played it prior to doing this show with you. I just don't think it has had that lasting power in terms of capturing my imagination in the following month, or plus since playing it. But just a minor adjustment there. Still an awesome game. Hades, I might bump up to a 9.5 like you.
Yeah.
I've continued to play Hades. I actually platinumed it last week. At the time of our recording, I think I had 15 hours in the game. I think I now have closer to 55 hours. So I have put in multiple times my amount of playtime that I have played at first when we reviewed the game.
That's one of those games that's just, we talk about it so much just because like you can say, I had this build and this boon.
Yeah.
And it just, we talked about it, I think, for half an hour before the recording tonight.
Yeah. You can keep talking about the lore. You can keep talking about runs you had, luck you had, interactions you've had, what you've achieved, what you've bought through the house contractor. Endless conversations with that one. I've even absorbed lots of documentary content about that game. I've looked into the behind the scenes of the making of that game, which is just fascinating. All the levels of development that game went through is just crazy to delve into. So Hades, I might even bump that score up if I could redo my score. But I guess I didn't note this at the start. All of our scores are going to, for the record book, for record keeping.
We're good record keepers.
Yes. We're not going to adjust our official scores. We're going to keep our scores as they were when we scored them. So this is more of a place for us to voice any regrets or things we notice up top, more about the superficial scores. The next thing that we're going to do is do about a dozen different categories where we give out kind of pseudo awards. So the first one is kind of the big one. And it is the top 5 games we played this season. So this is our rankings of our individual top 5 lists of games we played for season 1. They can be really any combination of secret or featured games. All 5 of our games could be secret. They could be featured. They could be a mixture. And really this ranking is a capturing of our feelings at this moment. It's an emotional decision based on how we feel this very week we're recording this episode. So importantly, I want us to disregard our scores. If one of us feels a certain game is our number 1, but we originally scored it 0.5 points lower than our number 2 pick, we're not going to worry about that at all. That's why we addressed all the score stuff at the top to allow ourselves to get those brief thoughts out of the way. So we'll share one game at a time, going back and forth.
Okay.
For each top 5 game, we'll share a bit about it, what it accomplishes, why it beats out other games, whether we've revisited it, how it occupies our thoughts.
Okay.
So
Are we starting with 5? I like
we're
to go in
starting with
reverse.
5.
Okay.
We're
Thank
not
goodness.
starting with number 1.
Okay.
We're going to go with number 5.
Okay.
DiscoCola, what's your number 5 game you played for season 1?
Okay. First of all, I want to say Hyperlight Drifter is like my 3rd favorite game of all time, my favorite indie game of all time. It's not on here because of that. Obviously, it's my favorite. So
now expound on that. Why? Why are you omitting it from your list? Because you told me you were going to do that ahead of this episode recording and, privately, and I still don't understand why.
I think it's not fair because it takes a spot away from another game that deserves to be talked about when, it's obvious that I would pick Hyperlight Drifter. So it's just
you feel like it already has its place in a list of some kind of your favorite games of all time.
Yeah,
so
it's so much of a given that I love it that it doesn't make sense to give it more airtime than I already need to.
One of the reasons we picked it as a featured game for season 1 is that it is one of your favorite games of all time. Like, it gives us momentum going into this season knowing, hey, some of these games I've played, some of these games you've played, some of these games neither of us have played. So it gave us a good mixture of stuff to look forward to.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Got it. What's your number 5?
Okay. I took some notes at the beginning of the day, and I think I'm already going to change number 5. Bug Snacks.
Bug Snacks is Disco's number 5. Why do you love Bug Snacks?
I think it was so fun. It went a direction I wasn't expecting, and I would think about fun and unique ways to catch some of the different snacks.
Cool. Very cool. My number 5 is Before Your Eyes.
Oh, already at 5. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So this almost didn't make my list, obviously being at number 5. I was thinking about a few other things, but Before Your Eyes, I'm picking to be on my list because of how different of an experience it was for me, how it was a game that made me kind of forget I was playing a game for a bit, which I think is something I forgot to mention in our review.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a good maybe 30 minutes closer to the end when there's a revelation that happens where I stopped remembering which room I was sitting in. I was so captivated by this game. I didn't have a lot of the technical hurdles with this game. Luckily, I mean, I feel really lucky that I had that kind of experience. The game actually made me feel emotions that a lot of other games have not made me feel, that we played throughout the season and just in general. And there's actually a part that made me so overwhelmed with emotion that I was tearing up, and it was making me think about people in my life and memories that I have and what I expect for my own future. I think it's a very special game. I think it's a special game for different people depending on what kinds of life experiences you've had. And so, I haven't thought a ton back to it, but I think in the moment, it really did capture me. It captivated me. So it's my number 5. I had to put it on my list for those reasons. So Disco, your number 4 game.
Outer Wilds.
Outer Wilds.
Yeah, I like I've said in the recording of the episode, I think about the ending all the time, the music all the time, and it turned a game that I was dreading into something that I enjoyed, and I look forward to getting the rest of the trophies that I'm missing. For the most part, there's a couple ship log entries that I'm dreading, but for the most part, I'm looking forward to playing that and playing Echoes of the Eye, which we both did not have time to.
Yeah, Echoes of the Eye is kind of a standalone DLC that recently released around the time of the recording of like this episode and our previous episode, which featured Outer Wilds. But I'm looking forward to delving into that too, and I think it'll be different enough content that it will give us something unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. My number 4 game for season 1 is Bug Snacks.
Hey, wow, higher than me. Okay.
So I actually had something else in this slot and I took it out today.
Okay.
Again, an emotional decision based on how we feel in this very specific moment. Bug Snacks. I was just looking back over the list and I thought, you know what, not that, Bug Snacks. And I was more thinking about like, okay, Before Your Eyes, if that's a game that really did something different in the moment I played it, what's a game that I wouldn't mind revisiting? And I was thinking about like, well, these games I would revisit, these games I would revisit. I got to what I originally had for number 4, and it wasn't hitting for me as in my memory as much as Bug Snacks. So Bug Snacks, I think you said it really well. Like, it captures your imagination about how you think about it when you're not playing it. Like, oh yeah, that's how I should try to capture that bug snack that I was stuck on. It is charming in so many ways. The characters are fun to talk to and look at. It's got this kind of cutesy, innocent, childlike look to it, but there's a lot underneath the hood. It has an ending that is very surprising and makes me want to see what the future holds for this series. There's DLC upcoming for Bugsnax, that was announced after we recorded our Bugsnax episode. I'm looking forward to delving back into not only Outer Wilds, but Bugsnax for DLC now. So we're going to have to do DLC catch-ups on a lot of these games. So yeah, Bugsnax, super fun. I still think about some of the little jingles too, like the music is great. Some charming characters. Like I said, yes, Bugsnax is really fun and not the game you expect when you look at the cover. Your number 3, Disco.
All right, my number 3, maybe a surprise, The Mummy Demastered.
Wow, I never would have guessed that for your number 3.
You
That's
know,
crazy.
Okay, so the game, it's really short, and like the enemy variety is just not there, and the enemies, like the little minor enemies, are not interesting. But the game was just so fun to play. It was well designed. I like Metroidvanias to start, anyways, and the music by Monomer is really good. Although when you were talking about like pause menus and stuff being very stripped down, the Mummy Demastered is an example of that. Okay. When I was streaming it, the music
not
was
always a terrible thing, but
yeah,
some of mine just weren't functional.
The music was just so loud, and there are no audio adjustment options at all.
Sucks.
So I had to adjust my streaming equipment to play the game properly. But I had a lot of fun, and the controls feel nice, and the upgrade progression just makes a lot of sense. So,
cool.
Yeah, The Mummy Demastered.
Wow, good pick. Unexpected pick. I don't think I would have guessed that. My number 3 for season 1 is Outer Wilds.
Nice.
So I'm just like rating each game one spot higher than you. But Outer Wilds, we've already kind of said it in this episode, and I think we covered it in depth a lot on our review episode on episode 10. But man, I thought I would feel a certain way about this game even when I knew the premise. And then when I played it, it made me feel all kinds of emotions at the same time. I would feel a sense of awe and wonder and amazement, while also feeling scared and intimidated, and also encouraged and curious. And all those things coalescing is just a crazy feeling when you're playing this game. It's a game full of mystery and wonder and uncovering stuff so that you can break this cycle that seems impossible to escape. So Outer Wilds, I'm still thinking about many weeks after initially starting it. And I, again, look forward to Echoes of the Eye DLC. So that's why I picked it for my number 3. DiscoCola, your number 2 game of season 1.
My number 2 is Hades, for all the reasons we've already said.
Very nice.
Very fun game. You know, Hyperlight Drifter's my favorite, indie game, and Hades has this dash, and even before we decided to play Hades, I was looking forward to just
the dash.
Operating the dash, just that mechanic alone. But this game ended up being so much more. It's a completionist's nightmare. It's a
yeah, and we're not just talking about the achievement/trophy system.
I go way beyond that, my friend.
Disco likes completing games to their absolute potential.
Yeah, and it is. I unlocked more mechanics last night that I didn't have, and I've got a long road ahead. I'm going to be playing this into season 3, I think.
It's a good thing. There's a lot to chew on with this game when it's so good.
Yeah,
it's good to have both the quality and the quantity with this one. Very nice pick. I'm so glad it's on your list. My number 2 game of season 1 is also one that had a dash that you just had to try out immediately, and it's It Takes Two.
Oh, yeah.
It Takes Two is my number 2 game because I had such a fun time playing this with you. It is a game that is so imaginative and pulls in so many gameplay influences into its level designs. so many artistic directions in all of its levels. There are so many parts to this game that you cannot in one sitting like just even remember, and that might seem like a negative, but I think it's just all quality and it's all really great. Great moments of cooperating and working together to solve a puzzle, but also moments where the game makes you do like a fun little challenge against each other. And that ultimately is reflecting the themes of the story.
Yeah.
It's just so well done. It recently won the Game Awards Game of the Year award.
Yeah, I was so happy. We messaged each other at like the same moment
it was
in
like
time.
11 at night. And we're like, It Takes Two, baby. So again, a game published by EA, but part of their EA Originals program, their kind of effort to push out more indie-like games, because I think EA, this big company, is realizing there's a hunger for these kinds of experiences. And at the end of the day, they're indie-like experiences. So It Takes Two is great. It's my number 2. What's your number 1 game of season 1? Your favorite game you played?
My favorite game that I played this season was Later Alligator.
Holy moly. Okay, Later Alligator.
Later
A
Alligator.
secret game from episode 2, I want to say.
Yeah, 2, I think.
Tell me again about Later Alligator.
So Later Alligator, it's really a simple game. Very simple. It's just a collection of mini games that's disguised as, finding out a secret about your friend Pat.
Yep.
But it was, the art direction was incredible, small boot animations. And I don't always remember that I played Later Alligator, but every time I think about that game, I smile. Like
Cool.
Visibly, I feel my muscles in my face move into a
Awesome.
smile. It's just such a delightful game. I think I'd talk about it more a little bit later in the episode, but
That's a great testament to your love for it. That's
Yeah.
so cool. Awesome. My number 1 game is Hades.
that's
Hades
a good
is
pick.
my favorite.
That's a great pick.
It's the game that I have played the most since we reviewed it. Again, like I said, I've platinumed it. These past 2 weeks especially, I've been hyper focused on that game. When I have free time, I play Hades. I think I'm done for now that I've platinumed it. I think like that was the final motivation that I had to like really get obsessed with it. So now that I've platinumed it, I think I can move on to finishing up some of the other games I played. But man, it's the complete package. I talked about how I don't like roguelikes
Still don't.
in that episode, and it is the best example I can think of a game I love in a genre I hate.
Mhm.
Not hate, hate's a strong word, but a
Well-
genre I just have not clicked with, that I've tried to click with so many times, and Hades was my game. Hades was the game, and I don't think I'm the only one. Listeners, if you have tried roguelike games and you haven't tried Hades, give it a shot. It's got amazing writing, great storylines. I think there's something like, 300,000 words of dialogue in the game or something like that.
It's really impressive.
It's got like many, 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 many hours of unique dialogue. You'll never hear the same thing twice. All of the characters are expertly voiced. The gameplay is fun. You pick up these boons from Greek gods that give you powers that change up the gameplay. You don't pick a class. Your class is kind of which weapon you choose to go into each run with. And you're the son of Hades, the god of the dead, and you're trying to escape and get to the surface. And the game story gives a great excuse for this game to be a roguelike. The story and the genre are inherently very tied together in a way that just makes so much more sense than other roguelike games I've played, where it just seems like kind of a mismatch or a shoehorn of a genre put into a game that doesn't really feel like it needs to be.
Like an
a
excuse
roguelike.
for the game to be difficult, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Hades is difficult, but it rewards you for dying.
Mm-hmm.
There's reward in learning more story, having more interactions, having more things you can unlock. You feel like you make progress even when you fail. Hades is amazing. I put it immediately into my top 100 games list that I keep, separately from this podcast. It is pretty high up on that list now. So again, another reason why I would have rated this game a little bit higher if I could, is that it is my favorite game of season 1. So awesome. I notice your list is a hybrid of secret and featured games. My list is all featured games.
Is it? Okay.
is.
I wasn't keeping track.
I'll
but-
recap again. So Disco's top 5. Number 5, Bug Snacks. Number 4, Outer Wilds. Number 3, The Mummy Demastered. Number 2, Hades. Number 1, Later Alligator. My top 5. Number 5, Before Your Eyes. Number 4, Bug Snacks. Number 3, Outer Wilds. Number 2, It Takes Two. Number 1, Hades.
Can I make an observation about that?
Please do.
I think what might be happening, at least a piece of it, is that you're a little bit more adventurous with your secret games. You played stuff like Art School. You played stuff like
I wanted to play experimental stuff.
Balthazar's Dream.
Yes.
A lot of the secret games I play, I'm a big physical game collector. In order to get a physical copy, you have to be kind of good, probably, unless you're self-publishing.
Right.
So
there has to be some quality, some notoriety behind the developer or the game itself.
So I think maybe I'm setting myself up to have maybe some better secret games,
Yeah,
just by the very
absolutely.
nature of how I play, collect video games.
I think that's totally fair. I think on the average, I think we shared it in our score breakdowns earlier. On average, I scored featured games higher. So I think it makes sense that all mine were featured games.
Another thing that I want to say, It Takes Two was the one that just got cut off.
Yeah.
I didn't want you to think I didn't enjoy my time
I
playing with
remember
you. I remember fondly.
I remember you saying the reason you rated it just a tad higher than me was because you got to play it with me. So
Yeah.
I don't doubt that for a second. I totally understand. And it's also been a while since we've played that too. Like it's been over 6 months, I think. So,
Yeah.
because we played that quite a bit before we even recorded the episode.
That's
about it.
right,
Like
yeah.
so, like maybe a couple months. So let's move on to our next category, which is one I'm very excited about. I think this is going to be really fun. It's a short one, but it's Jealous Games. What is Jealous Games? This is focusing just on the secret games from season 1. We're going to each share one game the other person picked and played and reviewed as a secret game that we want to play or wish we had picked. So you pick a secret game that I played that seems alluring. I do the same for you. DiscoCola, what's your Jealous game from season 1?
Well, looking at your list, I think Ape Out looks the most fun, but if I was to pick one, I think Maquette is actually the most compelling for my specific tastes. I think it takes the things from games like Before Your Eyes and Last Day of June and just sort of that overarching like narrative relationship, but puts it with an interesting art style that we had in like Manifold Garden, because you played it in relation to Manifold Garden.
Yes.
So I think it combines two things that I really like, and I am interested in maybe trying that on my own.
I think you would really like Maquette. I wasn't a huge fan of like the central relationship. I think that's actually the story and like the performance of those two characters in the central story. It's about a relationship. It's about, people who love and then kind of fall out of love. I think that's maybe one of the weaker parts for me. Not enough to ruin the game. I think the game's strengths are its imagination, its puzzles, the fact that when you're playing it, you have an idea about how the solution might go, but it seems far-fetched, and then you realize I'm right. And that is
That's
amazing.
a satisfying
That's
feeling.
really satisfying because it feels like sometimes I would play and I'd think like my intuition is sometimes really far-fetched.
Mhm.
I try the weirdest off-the-wall thing because that's how I would want to make it if I were making a game, and then I find out that's the solution. So a couple of moments in that game really made it score pretty highly for me. So I think you would like Maquette for those reasons.
All right, well, let's hear it.
My Jealous game, and it's not because you picked it as your number 1. I actually had this written down before tonight. Later Alligator is my Jealous game.
I'm so happy about that.
How glowingly you reviewed it, what you just said about it a moment ago. It seems like such a fun, charming game. I still only have seen a few seconds of gameplay from the trailer that you sent me, and I haven't even looked at that in a while, but man, it just seems like a cute, fun game and just like something that anybody could pick up and enjoy. So yeah, I want to check that one out, probably on Steam. Cool. I liked that category. That's really cool. Now I want to do underrated games.
That's why we're here.
Another way you could say this is games they don't get. You can have an entry here if you want, but it's optional. Only if applicable. So this can be interpreted any number of ways. The way we interpret it can be very subjective. We can mention one game from season 1, secret or featured, that's something along the lines of being misunderstood by others who have shared opinions about it that we've heard or read about. A game that has a gamer and or critic review score that we feel is too harsh, or a game that's quite literally underplayed and not enjoyed by enough people in a way that's heartbreaking. So doesn't really matter how you interpret it, but something along those lines. DiscoCola, did you have an underrated game?
Well, I did, and I guess maybe it's more appropriate to have not applicable, but I put down Later Alligator, honestly.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a negative review of it, but it is literally underplayed.
It is underplayed.
Not enough people have played it.
This I don't know that I had heard about this before you talked about it. Maybe you had told me anecdotally outside of recording that someone got it for you.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about it.
Right.
Yeah.
It won't be for everyone, but the only people it really isn't going to be for are the kind of people that need really challenging gameplay. Otherwise, I don't see how it's not totally accessible and just absolutely delightful. The writing in this game is just so natural. It's crazy. Like your best friend from college, is chatting with you through this. It just sounds like you're talking to real people are talking. It's so insane.
I looked it up on Steam, and I like to see total number of reviews on certain Steam games.
I did the same thing before the episode when I was trying to figure this out.
To give me an idea of like how, and it's not a perfect way of telling how popular a game is or how many players there are, but I see it has just over 1,000 reviews. So that's like not terrible.
That's not terrible, but then I looked at the scope of all the other games that I played.
Right.
It's way low.
Way low. If a game has between like 0 and 100 reviews, it's really unknown on Steam. And then like that, maybe 100 to 1,000 is kind of in the middle. And then once you get beyond a few thousand, then it's pretty well known. And that's why I have to say, just judging by that metric, I don't know that I have an underrated game for season 1.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to appreciation though, maybe jazz punk. A lot of people who play jazz punk love it. I really think it's a special game and is one of the first games to do what it does so well. Just like the satire, the dry humor, a game that makes you laugh out loud so much like that one. I think even more people could play it. It has even more reviews on Steam than Later Alligator. So I think a good number of people have played it, but I wish I heard it talked about more. I would recommend that to anyone who wants a comedic and unique experience. So if gun to my head, I would choose Jazz Punk, but I don't feel super passionate about it as an underrated game. Overrated games now. So this is the inverse. Games we don't get. Having an entry here is, again, optional, only if applicable. The way this can be interpreted can be incredibly subjective, but we can mention a game, secret or featured from season 1, that's something along the lines of being overpraised by others who have shared opinions about it, having gamer or critic review scores we feel are too generous, or being overenjoyed by a lot of people and having too big of a moment in sub-popular culture in a way that might be appalling or confusing to us. So, DiscoCola, did you have an overrated game?
My immediate instinct was to say Night in the Woods. But I think actually I feel a little bit stronger about Axiom Verge. I think that more accurately fits my feelings here. It's not a bad game by, any stretch, but I always, and in my score, like I recognize its importance in the surge of indies and my, favorite subgenre, the Metroidvania, but I don't love it as much as I hoped that I would when I first got it. Like it was a very special gift. It was my first like physical indie game for the most part. And I didn't love it as much as I wanted to. I don't like the character Trace, and I didn't love the game this time around when we played it for the episode either. So I'm looking forward to just finishing off the trophies and getting my perfect save file and calling it a day.
Axiom Verge is my pick for this category, actually. We have the same pick. I appreciate what it's doing. It's obviously paying homage to its influences, super closely and very passionately, and I give it all the praise for that. And the big moments in that game, encountering some of the characters, the bigger boss fights are very cool. I love so much about the game. A lot of the character design is very detailed and intricate. But I just felt myself wanting to play a lot of the games that it's based on more than continuing to play Axiom Verge. There's some of it that's repetitive. Other parts of it that I think are just overcooked, like the amount of weapons you can find and how you select weapons, and some of the control things about that game I think are a tad rough.
Like, I think the glitch gun is a super cool idea. I loved that. That was a big draw.
Super cool.
And I love the laser drill most of the time.
Yeah.
I think the sound gets a little bit grating after a while, but I think the laser drill is cool. It's fun to play with. But
and I also think the story for the game is too convoluted for what this game is.
Yeah.
I just think it is disproportionate. Those kinds of stories, those confounding like stories that play with time, I just don't relate to those, and this game has that in spades. So if you like that kind of thing, I think you would love Axiom Verge, because it's got a lot of that like really trippy, mind-melting story stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense at first until you really examine it. So yeah, Axiom Verge was both of our overrated game. Let's go to our biggest surprises. Though again, the way this can be interpreted can be very subjective, but we can select from all the games we played, and these are the qualities from any of the 31 games from Season 1 that were unexpected to us. They can be positive qualities, neutral qualities, or negative qualities. So the biggest surprises for Season 1, you can have a couple if you want.
I only prepared one.
Let's hear your one.
Okay.
I'll only share one too.
I think I have to pick a moment from Bugsnax. I think Bugsnax was the biggest surprise to me.
Okay.
I watched the episode of The Completionist of Bugsnax long before like Underplayed was even an idea. So I knew that like character development was going to get really deep, but what I didn't expect was just like how the story would develop, how that turn that it would take. That was totally shocking to me.
And you're talking about kind of like the sinister ending, the sinister twist that happens.
Not like post credits, sinister ending, but like the greater secret of the island.
Man, I actually, so I made kind of a list of several. That was on mine too.
Yeah.
I would argue that Night in the Woods did that same kind of thing too. Not literally the same thing, but the same kind of ending that's sinister in a way that's unexpected.
Yeah. I almost put that on my list as well. And I guess while I'm looking at all the games we played so that you can get through all yours, I don't want to take away what you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, this can be informal. You add some if you want.
Yeah, I want to make sure you get everything in. I'm a fan of fairness. Fury, I didn't expect any story, really. I didn't know what to expect in terms of story, but I didn't expect where that game was going to go. I did once.
Story-wise?
Yeah, I did once I started playing it, and like some of the dialogue played out. I was like, oh, I see where this game is going. But when I first started, like that was a surprise to me.
Okay. Cool. Any others? Any other surprises?
No, I don't think so.
It could be about like anything. It can be about like, I didn't know this game was going to be this long.
I liked Time Spinner more than I thought I would after like I test played it like for 45 minutes like a year and a half ago. I liked it more than I thought I would. But other than that, I don't have any specific other surprises, I don't think. But I want to hear what you have to say.
First thing I wrote down was what exactly Night in the Woods was. So that game to me just kind of looked like this really simple side-scrolling platformer, judging by the trailers that I looked at. But what we got was something that was much more dialogue focused, much more story focused, much more focused around kind of living several weeks in the life of these characters, where you can kind of talk to anybody in this town in several maps that stretch horizontally that represent this town, and discover lots of brokenness and darkness and problems with society and things that reflect a lot of the problems going on in our culture now. just a lot heavier than I expected it to be, especially with that that story turn that it takes, that sinister ending that I already mentioned. So just exactly the nature, the feeling of what that game was, the emotion of that game was a lot different than what I expected. Next, I would just say how scary Outer Wilds was. I mentioned it was a really powerful horror game at times for me. That might be a bit of an exaggeration, but the game made me feel a kind of terror that horror games don't usually give me. Horror games scare me a lot in the moment with like jump scares and like this dread of being caught by some killer or something. But Outer Wilds, there was this fear in like how much there was that was unknown and how little I am in this solar system. There's a different kind of fear that goes along with that, and giving me goosebumps just thinking about it. So that's the kind of fear that I don't encounter a lot in games. So I have to note that.
Well, I don't know much about Echoes of the Eye, but all the warnings that it gives me whenever I boot up the game, maybe you can expect a little bit more of the traditional.
Shoot,
I don't know. I avoided spoilers,
but
scare
me in many different ways. I don't know. I will still welcome it. I still want to play that. My next one is one of my secret games, Super One More Jump. How addicting that was. I didn't expect to want to do like the just one more try thing, literally hundreds of times more than I expected. There were levels that I tried upwards of 200 times before I finished them.
Wow.
Without even collecting like the 3 optional diamonds in each level, which I didn't go for because that would have been overkill for me. But that game, I would plan to play it for half an hour and I'd end up playing it for an hour and a half, So that was interesting. Let's see. Oh, and then my final one is the cutie scene from It Takes Two.
Oh, that's so true. You're so right.
The cutie scene from It Takes Two. If you've played It Takes Two,
you know
exactly what we're talking about. It is morbid. There's a morbid part in It Takes Two that, and again, we played this game together. We both just kept remarking how messed up it was, and that it kept going. It was just demented.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the game took a turn. So
I watched a famous internet gameplay duo play that scene recently, and it played out pretty much the same as it did for us.
Yeah, I'm glad we're not the only ones. Now I want to go to our favorite moments. So this is from all the games we played from season 1. We can list a few gaming moments that were our favorites. So some examples might be a favorite story beat or narrative cutscene, a favorite combat encounter, receiving a certain item, finishing something challenging, any kind of surprise or reveal that we loved. So favorite moments. Again, for this one, I'm sorry if I gave you the impression that it was only one, but you can say a couple here, I think.
Okay.
I think that would be fun.
So let me, looking through the list again, one I took off earlier, later Alligator, there's several characters that I encountered that were just absolutely delightful. I think of, and I even remember her, I never remember names, Geraldine from later Alligator.
Okay.
Super delightful encounter. Let's see, what else do we have here? I keep coming back to it, but the ending to Outer Wilds. So every time I think about this, the first thing I think of is Outer Wilds ending. I had so many mixed feelings about the game up until that point, but the way the music was used throughout the game, but then like the way that it took that music into the ending and used it to drive your final quest, it floored me.
Cool.
And then watching and playing that ending multiple times now since our recording never lived up to the first time. And I think that's like a truly a fleeting moment of total joy. And I think that in a meta way is reflective of some of the themes of Outer Wilds in a way. Just like this fleeting existence, but then this fleeting moment that was just like so impactful. Yeah. You live it once. And then
I would say that last 10 minutes of that game is also very surprising. It could fit into our previous category. It's another part of the game that's giving me goosebumps right now. So there you go. Any other favorite moments?
No, not that I can think of right now.
I would say the first time you beat Hades and make it to the surface was super satisfying, especially after I had thought like, oh man, I don't know if I can do this. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I have the skill to do this. But then you beat him, and I've since beaten him many dozens of times.
Yeah.
So there you go. But that satisfaction of finally making it through and the stress of first playing him, the discovery that he has a second phase even was crazy.
I remember that too. Yeah.
And then what you see on the other side is so different than the rest of what you experience in that game. So let's see. You know, I was thinking about Bug Snacks. I don't know if you liked this fight as much as it was kind of stressful and frustrating, but fighting Mega Maki in Bug Snacks.
That's the one I think about that one all the time, but not for the same reason. I kind of hate that fight.
It is kind of annoying, but the epicness of it is pretty cool to me. Body controlling dead bodies in Carrion.
Ooh, yeah, that's fun.
You know, the first time you realize that that's part of the game is really cool.
When you can climb into the mech.
Yeah, that's another cool one. Yeah.
The upgrade's called parasitism, so you're literally like the body now.
It is super cool. You get control over these people, and it's how you solve certain puzzles in Carrion. It becomes very essential to finishing the game. Free falling in Manifold Garden, that feeling of jumping off of a ledge and then just being able to free fall forever while this crazy architecture just loops and loops and loops around you. It actually gave me the feeling of like butterflies in my stomach when I would do that at times. So that I didn't expect that to happen, but that and this last one is more of a funny one, but just platinuming Balthazar's Dream. Just finally overcoming the technical challenges of that game. I had to play it on Vita, the PS4 version on PS4, and the PS4 version on PS5. Various combinations of full playthroughs and partial playthroughs to get all the trophies. Some trophies would unlock on certain platforms just because of the glitches. Super frustrating. The game is broken. But the feeling of finally being done with that was just like this weight being lifted off. And I felt like I had to complete it because I had already sunk so much time into it. It's that sunken cost fallacy, right? I fall for that all the time. So being free of the shackles of that game is really what I wanted to point out. 3 more categories we have. Favorite characters. So we can select from all the games we played. We can pick a character who is special to us. You mentioned later Geraldine from Later Alligator. I mean, that's making me think, are you going to pick Geraldine?
I had her on here originally. I removed her when I thought it was just one character. Geraldine from Later Alligator, absolutely deserving. The Transistor from Transistor, I think carried the game for sure. Let's see, who else do we got? I like Zagreus. Obviously, Zagreus is one of my favorite main characters. I often don't care for main characters or prefer like the silent protagonist approach.
Yeah.
There are characters in Night in the Woods that I like, but there are also characters in Night in the Woods that I hate. So,
well, I don't think you should let those characters you hate detract from the characters you love.
No, of course not.
I remember you liking Angus.
I like Angus. And I like B for the most part.
Yep.
I think they're both delightful. I like I don't remember all the names, but like the horror movie fan.
Lori.
She's great. Yes. I like the wayward crow character.
Oh yeah.
I think he's hilarious.
Yes. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on the tip of my tongue. Yeah.
But the one that I had down initially, and this is going to be super unpopular with the people that have played the game. But the boss called The Beat from Fury.
Okay.
Has stood out in my mind since I played the game. She, more than anyone else in that whole game, in my opinion, conveys the true stakes of the conflict and expresses like how hopeless and how powerless people can be in a great existential threat. But yet she still shows up. I heard another player that was doing a speed run or something call her a coward, and that made me like angry like actually angry. And I thought, how could you think that about this character that already, knows her fate, before she even shows up for work that day? Because this boss character is not difficult. It's basically a given that you're going to beat her. I think that character showed so much bravery and vulnerability.
Wow.
And it felt so incredible and devastating.
A game so like energetic and combat focused, I don't know that I would have expected you to pick a character from that, just from my memory of you talking about it. But wow.
Yeah, lots of frustration with that game. A lot of like one-dimensional characters, in my opinion, that I don't think that's one of them.
The beat from Fury. Cool. Here are my picks. Lori from Night in the Woods.
Cool.
Just
Good
down
pick.
one. Just wrote down one from Night in the Woods. Filbo Fiddlepie.
Yeah,
from Bugsnax.
Filbo's great.
Filbo's a great guy. I want to hang out with him. He means well. He means well. He doesn't do well all the time, but he means well. And then I put down several characters from Hades. I also put down Zagreus. I also wrote down Poseidon and Dionysus, just because those guys are like,
they're funny.
They're your uncles or whatever, or Poseidon's your uncle, and just the way they talk to you. I know how they sound in my mind, and sometimes I just let them talk to me in my mind. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense.
The way that Poseidon calls you little Hades or like little nephew is so funny. And the way Dionysus is like, hey, man, Zag, just calm down. Have a drink with me. And little old Dionysus and Zag hanging out. And then Zagreus is just really cool. Is voiced well by Darren Korb, who's the audio director for Supergiant Games. And
just all around talented individual, apparently.
All around talented, all around really cool. He's just issues cool. And then my other pick is the Ferryman from Before Your Eyes.
Oh, yeah, he's great. Great voice performance.
Great voice performance. The writing, the way he's written and how he delivers his lines just command your attention. Like you don't know what he's going to say next. His mood changes a lot in a way that's
think I'm
like,
thinking of the exact same moment.
What the heck are you, dude?
I thought it was
your
a
deal?
totally different like character that had the same voice for a minute.
Yeah, I was like, man, I don't know what's going to come out of this character's mouth next. And I remember him having the thesaurus or the dictionary, like trying to find the right words because he wants to make sure he doesn't screw up the next one, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So just an interesting character all around and one that could have been so much more simple. You know what I mean? So they went above and beyond with the Ferryman from Before Your Eyes. Second to last category, our favorite visuals. This one, I just want to pick one game each. So selecting from all the games we played, pick a game with the graphics and or visual style you loved the most.
Okay.
So what's your pick?
I've left Hyperlight Drifter off every other category just because of the given, but I can't leave it off of this one. Visually, just the color palette, the world design, the aesthetic, the sharp angles, it's greatly influenced my taste in all visuals of all games.
Cool.
So it's my favorite aesthetic that I didn't know was my favorite until this game came out.
Wow. Cool. Yeah, I'm not surprised you picked it. I'm glad it showed up somewhere in one of your awards. Yeah, I think it's well-earned, well-deserved. You talked about how that game does a lot by putting so much detail on a very small canvas. Those words will stick with me for a while, and I think that's totally true. My pick might be something that's unexpected or something that you forgot about, but my pick is Hoa.
Ooh.
My pick is one of my secret games that I did not give a very high score to compared to some of my other games. But oh my goodness, did so many of my merits for it come from the fact that it is a beautiful game. It is stunning looking. It looks like a Studio Ghibli film in every way. That's what almost every review you'll read about mentions. The environments are super cool. The character designs are very charming and cute and beautiful. Hoa has really great art direction and style, even if it doesn't always run the best and if it's somewhat of a simplistic, basic platformer. So
I remember when I was watching the trailer, but right when you started talking about it, I remember like progressively getting more and more disappointed with like how you felt about it, because that's the kind of game that I would have bought based just on the visuals alone.
And I think I would still recommend this game pretty highly to you.
I think I would. I still intend to play it
because it is a 2-hour experience. If you aren't having the best of times, it is short. And it's still got its own kind of charming sense to it. It's just parts of it are underdeveloped. Parts of it won't appeal to like the hardcore of platforming fans. It's going to be a game that people are going to want to play if they want something relaxing and carefree and with minimal risk where you can't die. It's a great game for kids. I would introduce this game to a child who hasn't touched many video games or maybe as a first video game. So I think it still has a lot of value. It just wasn't quite the title that I'd hoped it would be as far as like depth and difficulty. So now, favorite soundscape. Selecting from all the games we played, we will each pick a game with our favorite sound, music and or sound design and or voiceover performance. So you can weigh on any of those three kinds of categories as much as you want. Your favorite soundscape game.
Machinarium.
Whoa.
I think I said it.
This makes sense.
Yeah, I think I said it in the recording that the reason I first played this game was because of the soundtrack. It's an example of hearing the music before I actually play the game. And the soundtrack still holds up. I listen to it all the time. I've used that music in a lot of personal multimedia projects. Yeah, there's a lot of games that I played this season that are totally worth mentioning, and I wish, that I could go over all of them. There's a lot of names I'm going to remember from now on. Andrew Prallo, Darren Korb. Darren Korb shows up twice, actually, this season. But the music by FloX or Thomas Dvorak in Machinarium is one of my favorite soundtracks of one of my favorite albums of all time.
Wow.
And has been very important in my musical tastes overall.
Very cool. Great pick. Love it. A very inspired pick with Machinarium. My favorite soundscape for me was an easy pick. It's Hades.
Yeah.
The audio direction, the music, the soundtrack, you'll hear the same songs over and over, but they never get tiresome because I've done dozens of these runs now. I think I'm up to I want to say 70 escape attempts, most of those having escaped. So I've heard music from all the areas of the game many times. And man, it's just such a great amount of kind of heavy rock music that reinforces the action at hand, but also really relaxing acoustic music when you're in some of the quieter moments of the game, all inspired by these Greek myths. And then also just the voiceover delivery in this game is masterful. And it's crazy how for a lot of their talent, they're just using in-house people who have another job at the studio of Supergiant Games. I mean, I think it's Darren Korb doing Zagreus and Skelly, but you also have Greg Kasavin, the creative director, I believe, who's doing characters like Hypnos, the way that they start with a human voice and then warp it until it doesn't sound like unfaithful to the original voice, but more so that it's faithful to their imagination of what this mythical person would sound like. The way all that's done is very imaginative. You can tell that they really thought about how all these people should sound. And then just the way they deliver the lines and the way the lines are written with a great soundtrack backing everything. So Hades is my pick for favorite soundscape. And that is our final category for season 1 recap and reflection. And with that, we can move on to part 2 of this episode, finally, over an hour in, which is where we will plan season 2's featured games. Okay, so now we enter the part of the episode that is more unexpected somehow than our first part, because we don't know how attached each of us will be to our games queue that we have. We're going to build out our list of 10 featured games we want to have for season 2, and to just so that we don't start from absolute square zero, we have built out a games queue that we each can add games to. We've been adding to it for a couple months now. Each time one of us has an idea for a featured game, we add it to this queue for consideration. And this whole conversation will be messy, unprofessional, mistake-ridden, clumsy, what have you. That's kind of the point of this. We're capturing our raw planning for you as if we didn't have microphones in front of our mouths, but we do. We think this might have value as being entertaining, question mark?
Yeah, I guess we'll find out eventually someday.
And I guess the first evidence of our unprofessionalism will be that I don't have our ground rules up in front of me about what makes a quality featured game. So let me search for that email that I sent you. In the meantime, you can fill with anything you want to talk about.
Dun, dun, dun. Da, 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 da. Oh, actually, there was something I was going to bring up. So I have a toddler at home, and she speaks in pretty much complete sentences now, or will parrot words.
Yes, this is a good story.
I've started replacing swear words with names of grumpuses
from Bugsnax.
From Bugsnax. Yes. It was not on purpose at first. I used to say, "Oh, snort." Instead of the S word, but it became "oh snorp," like for Snorpy.
Sure.
So I've since like looked at the list of grumpuses and cool. Have assigned names.
I love that. Another way games have occupied our minds recently. I love it. So what makes a good featured game? I came up with some kind of ground rules. And I don't want to be like too pedantic about things, but I think that there are 3 kind of hallmarks that make a good featured game. And I think you could apply these things to our season 1 games. I think they check all these boxes. So here's what I've noticed about season 1's featured games. As a collective, they represent a diverse representation of genres, and where possible, there's a variety of gameplay styles and artistic direction going on. Number 2, all of the selections should, while still occupying the indie game landscape, have a relative sense of relevance. Games that are particularly innovative, documented, or consumed by indie game fans, noteworthy entries into the umbrella of indie games based on what we've seen, read, or already played. This rule can be somewhat subjective and can call for conversation. So basically, games in the indie space that aren't just like quite literally so underplayed that no one's played them, but ones that will be recognized by people who are somewhat familiar with indie games. So that I think is a good way to abbreviate what I just said. And then the games should follow our usual rule about developers. They're developed by smaller teams or teams that aren't AAA developers. They're made with smaller budgets, published by smaller companies, etc. So those are kind of all the rules that I want to follow or think about as we discuss what in our games queue makes sense.
We spent a lot of time splitting hairs before this episode too, trying to figure out some of those a little more gray area games, yes. I would call them.
Yeah, there's some games that I think are up for debate, maybe some really friendly debate that we might get into here. Now, we have a list of 30 games in our queue, but they're not all at the same kind of status as far as being vetted for official like eligibility to be a featured game.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we were planning season 1, we actually had a handful of other games that we ended up not playing. We just had all these options that we previously vetted. So I want to go through that list. It's about 7 games. Let's go through that list. And if any of us have reservations like 6 to 8 months later, let's voice those now. But those games are Hollow Knight, Momodora, Reverie Under the Moonlight, Kentucky Route Zero, Return of the Obra Dinn, Celeste, Chris Tales, and Death's Door. So as it stands right now, I don't have any reservations about any of those being featured games.
I don't think I do either. Maybe some of these are too long or too difficult to put all in the same season, potentially.
Right. But which we're not quite getting into yet as far as like strategy of which games. We're simply just trying to figure out, are these eligible to be featured games, period.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, you agree with those. Now, one other note before we get to our other 23 or so games in the queue. before we pick our 10 for season 2. Hollow Knight and Momodora, we've kind of had side conversations about those already being in season 2. Hollow Knight, I think, would be that's one we've talked about being the season opener for season 2, just because it's a big, important game and just because of its length. And we're going to take a bit of time off between recording season 1 and season 2. So having that extra time will help us play Hollow Knight in an amount that is fair to what that game has to offer. So I think that that's the one that we are thinking about mutually as being the season opener for season 2. And then Momodora, we originally actually slated to have that one be in season 1, but because of scheduling coincidences, I'll say, like vaguely, we were in a situation where we could both play Carrion at the very same time. And so to maximize that experience, we swapped out Momodora for Carrion in season 1. So to kind of make it up to Momodora, I think the plan could be that Momodora is a given for one of the 10 games.
I agree with that.
Okay, so we've established that those 7 games, Hollow Knight, Momodora, Kentucky Route Zero, Return of the Obra Dinn, Celeste, Chris Tales, and Death's Door are all featured game eligible. Hollow Knight and Momodora are in the season 2 rotation.
Yes.
So that means that we need to now go through our larger queue of 23 games, and we just need to establish whether we both agree these can be featured games. Okay.
Ooh, okay.
We're not picking them for season 2 yet. We're just coming to an agreement on whether they should be featured games. And if, we each put games on this list, if one of us has an argument for why it should be considered, we could say that. There are going to be games that I don't know a lot about that you put on there, and vice versa. So I will just go down chronologically the order that we put down. So the first game is What Remains of Edith Finch. This was mine that I put on the list.
Okay.
It's an adventure game, and it's one that I've played. I don't know. What do you think?
I remember you talking about it. I think it should be eligible.
Okay. What Remains of Edith Finch is eligible. It makes the cut. Disco Elysium. I think this is one that I put on. I've heard a lot of praise for this one. It is a larger game, I think.
I don't know anything about it. I'm partial to the name, and I have heard of it.
I never thought of that. Well, in Disco Elysium, you play as a detective, and you have a skill system at your disposal where you have all of these emotions that you pick from that influence your dialogue options toward people you encounter. Now, I have not played this game. I think I might be misrepresenting it slightly, but you can choose what kinds of dialogue options you want to focus on based on like how you build out your character.
I'm gonna say
it's a choices matter game too.
I'm in the same place where I was pre-season Outer Wilds. I heard a lot of praise about it. I don't know anything about it. I'm willing to give a game with that kind of praise a chance.
Okay. Sounds good. Disco Elysium is eligible. Firewatch. This was again my game that I added to the queue. This is one I have played previously. It's a first-person adventure game. Do you know about this game?
I don't know about it, but I remember you talking about it.
In this game, you're a fire watcher. You're in the wilderness. You have a walkie-talkie, and you're talking to somebody.
Yes.
It's mostly a walking simulator, but it's very story-based. It's maybe a 4 to 5 hour experience from what I remember about it. Let's see. It's kind of it's got like 50,000 reviews on Steam, so lots of people recognize this game, but it's still very much in the indie space.
I mean, I want to play it someday. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Firewatch is eligible. 12 Minutes. This is a more recent game. This is one neither of us have played. This is a mystery puzzle game. You're in a time loop where you see things from like a top-down perspective, and I think you're trying to prevent a death or something, some kind of violent event from happening.
Yep.
That's all I know about it. You're going to have to forgive us, listeners, because the games we haven't played before, we're only going to know vague details about in some cases. So be forgiving with us.
We're not always watching like other content creators like do playthroughs because we want to play these ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil myself on games. I think I never watch playthroughs of games I haven't played. So that's where I am.
This one I'm very excited to play. I want to play this one so bad. Someone asked, oh, hey, is your secret game for Outer Wilds going to be 12 minutes? I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a featured game. So I intentionally didn't play it for that reason.
Sounds good. 12 minutes. And it was nominated for like best indie game or something at the Game Awards.
Yeah.
All right. The next one, I think all these so far have been ones I added. And the next one is the same. Emily is Away series. So this one I am not super attached to. If you disagree about this being eligible, I'm totally fine with it. I'll still try to sell you on it if you're interested. Emily is Away is, I think, a PC-only series. I've only played the first game, but it follows the story of, at least the first one, follows the story of this guy who's chatting with this girl that he likes on like basically an AOL instant messenger system. And it very much recreates that environment, that online environment from, like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And so it's a very reminiscent experience because you get to remember what it was like to chat with people on instant messenger back then. And it's kind of a thing where you get to choose what you want to say. And it's entirely like takes place on a computer screen.
Okay.
And then what happened was they released this game. It was, let's see, it's got 30,000 reviews on Steam. But it's an interactive story. It's free to play. I think a lot of people played it because it was free to play. And then because of that, they made a sequel called Emily is Away 2, T-O-O, spelled T-O-O. And this one was, again, about surfing the web, choosing your path through these conversations. I haven't played this one. And then they made Emily is Away 3. And it's stylized with like less than 3 to make like a heart. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
And I think more of that one takes place in the dawn of the Facebook era. So they kind of follow this trajectory through like the early to late 2000s as far as their stories. Like, so it kind of takes place in those social media spaces. And the idea that I had here is because all these games are relatively short. The idea would be that we would combine all 3 potentially into one featured review. So a very off the wall idea, kind of an off the wall series. If you think that is more eligible as a secret game, I totally understand.
I'm going to tentatively lean that way, but I'm gonna hold it hostage just in case there's a game later that I want to sort of really, really, really push for.
Okay, so
don't take it off the list yet.
Don't take it off the list yet. Okay.
But I don't feel as strongly about this one.
All right. Doki Doki Literature Club Plus is our next GameCube game. This was yours that you put on there. Right?
Yeah.
What? So
I think
you don't need to talk about it. I'm in.
You're in?
I'm in.
Okay, cool.
Binding. Now this next one is one of yours. Binding of an Isaac, which is a reference to the fact that the game Binding of Isaac has had many, many, many iterations over the years. I've played Binding of Isaac before. This was your idea to put this in the queue. I'm a fan of having this be eligible. You don't have to convince me.
Okay.
Fez is our next game idea. This was yours?
Could have been.
I think it was.
I've wanted to try it.
I think it was. Okay. So Fez, you haven't tried it. I have. I bounced off of Fez pretty quickly after I started it the first time, but I would definitely try it again.
Okay.
And I think that it is a noteworthy indie game that lots of people know. So I would be a fan of it being a featured game.
Just before we move forward, just because I put a game on here doesn't necessarily mean that I'm super stoked to play it. I think there's one coming up that a little bit later that I put on there because of its notoriety.
Yes, and I think that is totally fair. I think we should be comfortable with playing games that we're not like super jazzed about playing. I think we should try different things and experiment. I definitely did that too. Like there are one or two on that I contributed that are the same way. So that being said, Fez, I'm fine having it be eligible as
Okay.
a featured game.
Fez, I do want to try if you're okay with it.
Sounds good. Cave Story. This again was yours. This is I think, right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Cave Story was a game that I also tried a long time ago and bounced off of pretty quickly. It's an adventure and Metroidvania and platformer game. And I think it was pretty influential in the early days of like indie games from the era it came out in. So I think we'd be remiss not to have it be eligible. So I don't have any qualms with it.
Cool. I want to try it.
Okay. Next one is Shovel Knight.
Given.
It's a given. It's eligible. Next one is one of mine. Chicory, A Colorful Tale. Hey, that's a transition. This is Bopo, recording this in a different room on a different day in the future after the episode you're listening to. And I just want to make a note before we get into the Chicory banter that ultimately DiscoCola decided that Chicory would be a good featured game candidate after this episode recording. So you can disregard any qualms about the game and just know that that game will one day maybe be a featured game. It is now in our vetted list. It is approved as a featured game candidate. So I'm going to transition you back now. This one might be one I have to sell to you.
Okay.
A game I haven't played.
All right.
So I might have to look it up. But it's a game that came out here in 2021.
Okay.
As we're recording, it's almost the end of 2021, just for people's context. This game came out on PlayStation. And it is kind of an artful game where you're like a dog and you're painting the world.
Oh.
That's at least what I remember about it. A 2D adventure video game. It features anthropomorphic dog with a magical paintbrush, which is used to color the game world. The developer also worked on Wander Song, which you might have heard of.
I am very familiar with Wander Song.
Yeah. So
Not very, but I am familiar with it.
Cool. So Chicory's on PlayStation. It's also on Steam. And I think it got a Game Awards nomination.
I'm gonna type this in myself. Because I think what will ultimately sell me on this is the very specific art style. Oh, you know what? I have seen some from this.
It is not like a mega well-known indie game like some of the others in this list. Like it's not a Shovel Knight. It's not a Binding of an Isaac. It's not a What Remains of Edith Finch.
And I'm a fan of trying to get more of those games in the feature game spot. I'm not as sure about this one, to be honest. Even though I love like the art style of Wander Song. And I want to say also, just in general about our episodes, is that I think oftentimes like the secret games actually give us a little bit more room to express some of those passions. So if there is something,
I'm going to remove Chicory, and I'm going to do it by putting a hash mark through it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a fan of not totally removing games from this list just in case, but
all right.
So this next one, I think I put on there and was sort of what I was alluding to earlier.
Let's see. Undertale.
Yeah.
Undertale. No argument from me. I think it should be eligible.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's eligible. I don't think I'm super stoked about playing it. But
yeah. I have played through it before. I played through it, I think, the year after it came out, and I would gladly replay it. And I think it has definitely the popularity, definitely the impact in the indie game space to deserve a featured game spot someday. The next one is Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, which was yours.
Yeah.
This is a Metroidvania from Way Forward. I would play a Shantae, and I think Shantae and the Pirate's Curse is one that I've heard the most about from that series.
Yeah.
And there's like 5 or 6 games in the series.
It's generally the most popular, I think, and if not secondhand prices alone or anything to go off of, it's easily the most popular.
Yeah, it's either that one or Half Genie Hero, right?
Yeah, Half Genie Hero is not as popular.
It's not? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's more accessible. It's easy to get.
Okay. I think it is just maybe closer to the bottom edge of like minimum popularity I think a game would need to have to be a featured game. So
Fair enough.
I think it is still eligible, though. I'm good with it. This next one was my idea, and I put it on before it came out. It came out in 2021. I don't think it's had the moment and the impact that it seemed like it might have. So
Maybe we can give it that moment.
Maybe, but it's Sable, and it's the open world adventure game that has a really unique art style where you're flying around on like a desert place.
Oh, you know what? This looks cool. I think this looks cool.
And again, we're trying to select games that are noteworthy, not just because of their popularity, but because of how they look and what they do, how they play, what they introduce to the world of games. So
I want to keep this one eligible.
You want to keep it eligible?
Yeah.
Sounds good. We'll keep it eligible. Unsighted is the next one. And this one came out again in 2021. Another one that I think has been really unnoticed compared to what I expected it to do since it came out, or maybe you disagree
entirely.
Really? Okay,
yeah,
okay.
It's getting like best Metroidvanias from a lot of popular game journalism sites. It's showing up in most top 10s from a lot of those same sites as well.
Okay.
And I kind of wanted to get to it before it got that popular, but
Sure.
It's doing very well, I think. And this is what I'm holding Emily is Away hostage for. I feel very strongly about Unsighted.
I'm fine with Unsighted because it's a game I would play and it looks interesting. The only thing is like, it doesn't seem like it has a ton of reviews on Steam. Like it only has a few hundred.
I don't think it's not one of those games that has and maybe never will like puncture into those mainstream people that give indies a try. Sure. I think is the thing.
For what it does, you've talked about like some of doesn't it have kind of a time element to it?
Yeah, there's a time element to it. You can turn that off. It is an option to turn that off to make the game a little bit easier.
It certainly represents an artistic direction that's unlike other games so far in our queue. I'm fine with it. You've sold me.
Okay.
I was like mostly sold already, but now you like pushed me further that direction. The next one is Spiritfarer. And
I think it's worthy of relevance. But I would also be okay with this one being a secret game. It's also a longer one, and I am less likely to really push for those, but I do think it is worthy of being one. But I'd be okay with it if it wasn't.
I mean, this was my entry.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh.
So
I assumed it was me because I was like really excited to get the physical.
I think we were both talking about it at the same time, but I think I actually typed it in here.
Okay.
I think it's got the notoriety. I think it's relevant. Lots of people talk about it. It's in the conversation in the indie game space. I think it's a great candidate.
Okay.
For being considered.
Cool.
The next one is, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Tunchi?
Yeah, I would have said Tunch, but
Tunch?
I think I put this in there mostly because I thought that we would both like it and I didn't want to forget about it. I don't know that it necessarily like raises to the popularity level of needing to be a featured review, but okay. I wanted it to be on there for the purpose of like giving us both a chance to play it. Oh, whoops.
Sorry about that. There's our unprofessionalism at work. So I don't know what this is still, I guess. It's like kind of hack and slash.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think maybe I put it on there for the characters. I don't know. I put it on there just because I didn't want to forget it mostly. But.
Sure. And it's got like these moments where you're in dialogue and you see the character. It looks kind of almost like Hades-like, where you see the characters pop up on screen and you see like larger illustrations of them. I'll be honest, I don't think this looks like featured game material to me.
All right.
I don't think you have to worry about me picking this as a secret game too. I would say reserve this as a potential secret game for yourself.
Got it.
Let's do that. All the games we've mentioned so far, the only ones we're taking out are Chicory, A Colorful Tale, and Tunch, or Tunchy, or Tunch.
And for the record, if any of those devs happen to be listening, we're still probably going to play these. And like
Yeah.
I said
Oh, yeah,
a little
like
bit
I'm-
ago, like secret games really give us a lot of room to really
explore
a
games
lot
that
of passion.
really interest
Yeah.
us, that we're
I
passionate
find
about.
my more in-depth thoughts often are in the secret game
Yeah.
section.
Like Chicory, I've been looking forward to playing for so long because of what I've heard people saying about it. Like I've heard people say that it's in their top whatever, like 5 of 2021. I think it does fantastic things from what I've heard. The next one is A Short Hike. This one is one I think neither of us have played, but this one has gotten a lot of buzz the past few years. It released on PC first, but it's come to other systems since. And it's kind of a peaceful game where you're exploring a mountainside. It's kind of a Zelda-like from what I've heard. There's a lot of exploration and relaxation and adventure. So are you looking it up right now? A Short Hike?
No, I remember liking that one. I'm looking up one that's coming up in a little bit.
Okay. This was my idea. So
No, I think
arguments?
we should
Okay.
play it.
Next one is Solar Ash. I think it's a yes from both of us. I
Okay.
think that was yours.
Cool. Good.
I think that
Happy
was
about it.
yours. You entered that one on the list.
Of
right?
course I did.
Yeah. So that one just came out. Looking forward to that. That's the follow-up from Heart Machine to Hyperlight Drifter. I'm losing my mind. We've been recording this way too long. Let's see. The next one is yours. It's Mind Seas.
Yeah.
Tell me about Mind Seas. I know nothing about it.
I know very little about it myself, and that's what I'm looking up right now, trying to remind myself. I think it's one of those ones that I put on there because I didn't want to forget it, and maybe give you the chance to look at it as well. But I say, cut it. It's a secret game. I just don't want to forget it.
Sure. Yeah, let's cut it because it doesn't quite look like it's at the level of some of these other games. So I'm going to, it's omitted. Let's see. The next one is Unpacking. This is kind of an indie darling from 2021 yet again. And this is about organizing people's lives by seeing the objects in their living spaces, I guess, and placing things according to what makes sense in your head, I guess. That's what I've gotten from this game. I haven't played it. Very highly reviewed, highly recognized in the indie space. What do you think?
I want it, and I kind of want to play it for season 2.
All right, jumping the gun. I love it.
I think this would fit
No,
in nicely.
Okay, let's keep it and let's consider it for season 2 in a second. We're almost done with our list. 2 more. Sayonara Wild Hearts, which is an action and music game. I think we both want this one.
Yeah, I think I'm down for pretty much anything that comes from Annapurna. So.
And then the last one is Oxenfree, which I have played before.
I haven't played it, but
you've seen playthroughs though, right?
yeah.
Or you know about it.
And I was always interested in it.
Okay, so let's keep that one as eligible.
Yep.
And then what is this Out Buddies Director's Cut?
That's
What is
just another game that I kind of want to play with you, but it's another one I just don't want to forget. I don't think it should be
Oh, okay. Got
maybe if we want to do
it
like
looks like Zeo Drifter.
Yeah,
Have you heard
maybe
of Zeo
if
Drifter?
I have.
Yeah.
Maybe if we want to do another episode because it's a co-op game.
Oh, okay.
So
an episode where it's both of our secret games. That'd be weird. No. Well, maybe we can like do a bonus.
Yeah.
Of some kind.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do a bonus episode where we do like a couple of co-op games that have been collecting dust on the side that we haven't gotten to.
There's not many of those these days, but
yeah, I have a few ideas for those actually.
Okay.
That I could throw by you at another time. All right, so the ones that we are omitting from our queue: Chicory, A Colorful Tale, Tunch, Mind Seas, and Out Buddies Director's Cut, which wasn't really a serious entry to begin with. So I'm going to start building our season 2 order.
Okay.
We have Hollow Knight beginning the season. Somewhere we need to put Momodora Reverie Under the Moonlight, which we had to hold off from doing on season 1. So I want to make sure we get to that one.
Yes. Well, they're both Metroidvania to a degree. Hollow Knight more so than Momodora.
Yes. Hollow Knight's a Metroidvania, and it's also it's difficult. It's a difficult kind of like platformer action game.
Yep.
And then Momodora, I get the sense, is a shorter experience.
Shorter. It's also surprisingly difficult.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So I would not want to play those in close proximity.
I think we should consider Momodora for a mid-season, similar maybe to where we even initially planned for in season 1.
Okay. So in season 1, we would have played it in episode 7.
Yeah.
So do you want to just arbitrarily put it at 7 for now?
Sure.
So Momodora, Reverie Under the Moonlight is our 7th game, semi-arbitrarily. Hollow Knight, our 1st game.
Now, I would say we already have 2 Metroidvania style games. Metroidvanias are really common.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just more of them, but maybe try and only do 1 more.
If any. If we do more, just only keep it to 1.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're building the season 2 list, and we're also strategically planning the order in a way that makes sense. We need to find a good variety of games. We also need to structure them in a way where we're not playing the same kind of game 3 episodes in a row. We need to mix it up.
We also need to consider longer games and shorter games, and making sure that we're not playing long games twice in a row.
In the middle, yes, and in the middle of the season. So, all right, now we can kind of do this however you want, I think, because this is what I had the least amount of planning for, if you can believe it.
Okay, so maybe what we can do is maybe you mention a game that you're super excited about, or maybe that you think fits in for season 2.
Yeah, something that's adding something that isn't in the list already.
Right. Maybe something that neither of us have played recently.
Okay. Well, before we do that, what about putting in Unpacking?
I want to put in Unpacking.
Let's put in Unpacking, since you were saying that's a good season 2 one already. So we'll put Unpacking.
I kind of want to put that at episode 9 to give us a short little, a shorter snack before maybe potentially a longer game at episode 10.
Okay. Unpacking is in the list at 9.
I would be open to moving that to another place, but that's where my head is with that.
Sure thing. So we've got Hollow Knight on episode 1. We've got Momodora on episode 7. Unpacking on episode 9. We should mention that Momodora is part of a series, and it's actually the 4th game in its series, but it's kind of a prequel to the other games. So
and I don't know.
It's a great jumping on point,
I think. I don't know anything about any of the other Momodora games, and there's even one coming up at the time of this recording.
Yeah, I think it's a sequel to Reverie, right? All right, so I'll throw out a game now. We've got 2 Metroidvanias. We've got kind of organization sim is what I've put down as the genre for Unpacking. Let me look up Unpacking one more time on Steam and see what people, story rich, relaxing, pixel graphics. Cute,
story rich. Okay.
Yeah, I guess because you're learning about the people you're unpacking for. So that might have some pleasant surprises. So I want to pick something that's kind of different. I could go with an RPG. I could go with an adventure game. I'm going to pick a kind of a shorter experience.
Okay.
I'm going to pick What Remains of Edith Finch.
Cool. I am into that. I'm feeling that probably at in episode 2, maybe a Night in the Woods sort of parallel here.
What Remains of Edith Finch, which is an adventure. It is at number 2. Throw out a game. What do you think?
Here's the thing. Regardless of whether or not it's in season 2, I am going to play Unsighted during our season break.
Oh.
So I would be willing to throw that out there for season 2, personally.
Okay.
But if we're holding off to make sure we don't overload with Metroidvanias, actually, I'm gonna say Doki Doki. I think I kind of
changing from.
Yeah, I still kind of want to try and get it in there for season 2, but I'm gonna say Doki Doki.
Yeah, Doki Doki is a great choice. I wanted Doki Doki for season 2. Actually, that might have been my next pick.
I don't know where to put that yet, but I think you could probably beat it in 2 sit downs. I'm guessing 6 or 7 hours maybe, tops.
How long is Doki Doki Literature Club Plus? Completionists 15 hours, main story 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we could put it anywhere.
Yeah, we could put it anywhere. Maybe just put it underneath the list until we figure out where some of our longer games are.
Okay.
Yep.
What do I need to throw out now?
I need to be looking at the stuff that's also previously vetted.
Yes.
It kind of was off to the side there for a sec.
Yes. Because we don't have any platformer action going on. I'm going to throw out Celeste.
Cool.
I'm going to throw Celeste out there.
All right.
Well, I could throw out Celeste or Shovel Knight. I feel the same about both as far as like excitement. You know what I mean?
If I'm more excited to play Celeste because I haven't done it yet.
Okay.
I don't want to play after Momodora
Why not?
because Momodora is hard and Celeste is hard.
Okay. Celeste has like an assist mode that helps you out. And like, I don't know. I think you're talented at platformers in the same way I am. And
I did play like an hour of it, so like,
yeah.
I mean, I did okay.
Do you want to put it in the middle, like episode 5?
Let's put it in the middle.
Celeste at 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Throw one out.
Yep.
Can I put Doki Doki Literature Club Plus?
I would.
6?
I could put that on either side. Yeah, that'd be fine.
Either side of Celeste?
Yep.
Let's do it at 4.
Okay.
Man. Let's
All
do
right.
it at 4.
Well then, if I may, at 6, so that's a little bit further away from Edith Finch, which I feel is like probably pretty story driven. I kind of want to play 12 minutes for season 2.
Okay. 12
so
minutes.
I would like to put that at like 6 or 8.
How long to beat 12 minutes? Doesn't take 12 minutes. I know that.
I'm gonna guess 7 hours, 7 or 8 hours.
Completionist is 7.5 hours.
Oh, even
Main
shorter.
story is 4 hours.
Okay.
So where do you want that?
Either side of Celeste, even after Momodora would be fine.
12 minutes at number 8. I'm going to do that.
Cool. Dig it.
I'm also noting down the genres next to all these picks so that we can kind of just see a snapshot of what we're getting
spacing
as we
them
go.
out.
Yeah. So right now, let's recap. We've got first episode, Hollow Knight, which is a Metroidvania. We've got What Remains of Edith Finch, which is a shorter adventure game for number 2. Number 3 is Blank. Number 4 is Doki Doki Literature Club Plus, which is a kind of a visual novel, romance, also / horror game. Number 5 is Celeste, which is a platformer. Number 6 is Empty. Number 7 is Momodora, Reverie Under the Moonlight, which is another Metroidvania. Number 8 is 12 Minutes, which is a mystery puzzle game. Number 9 is Unpacking, which is an organization sim. Number 10 is Blank. So we need to fill in 3 blanks. This is happening much faster than I expected it, actually.
Well, the first part took a while.
It did. Is it my turn?
It is your
Pick
turn.
Something?
I think we need to be thinking about a longer-ish one at least for episode 10.
Let me look something up before I speak too soon.
Okay.
I'm looking up something on How Long to Beat. Oh dear. That's very long. How do you feel about something that takes 21 hours for the main story?
That's a little bit more than Outer Wilds said it was, which was our episode 10. We also talked in between episodes about maybe giving ourselves an extra week for episode 10 so that we could potentially play an even longer one.
And let me look up one more thing about it.
Okay.
I'm going to pick, because we don't have RPG action going on, I'm going to pick, what do you think about Disco Elysium?
Okay. Let's give it a shot.
Okay.
I feel, but I think I said it earlier. It's Outer Wilds in my head already.
Disco Elysium could be a really good last one, because we've got Unpacking before. We got 12 Minutes and Unpacking, 2 shorter experiences, the 2 episodes before it. But the question also is is that a good season closer?
I said,
it doesn't have to poetically fit as a season closer,
But in my head, it's already Outer Wilds. Other than the obvious, Shovel Knights and Doki Dokis, I feel like it's super popular in a different way than some of these other ones.
Okay, so you're good with that at 10?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that makes sense. I think we're building it in a way where we could even start tackling it, the few weeks before that 2-week window of recording for.
And I had a little bit of that with Outer
10.
Wilds, and it helped a lot.
So now we have 2 more slots to fill. We've got Hollow Knight for episode 1, What Remains of Edith Finch for episode 2. Number 3, we need to fill in. Number 4, Doki Doki Literature Club. Number 5, Celeste. Number 6, Blank. Number 7, Momodora. Number 8, 12 Minutes. Number 9, Unpacking. Number 10, Disco Elysium.
Okay, so we've got a lot of these. A lot of these are pretty short. So let's see if I can get a mid-range one.
Yeah, mid-range one would be good.
Can you look up Death's Door.
I was just doing that. I was typing that in the moment you said that. Death's Door, I think, is that mid-range. It is an 8.5-hour main story. It's a 14.5-hour completionist, and it's an action-adventure game.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of straddling this
and is
kind
that,
of genre that other games aren't really doing.
Is that on PS4, right? It's on PS4 now?
It is.
Okay.
Let me double-check that for you. Death's Door, PS4. Death's Door is on PlayStation 4, according to this Google search.
It's not coming out on physical on PS4, but
you're gonna have to buy the digital.
Yeah, I'll buy the physical PS5.
Join me. Yeah, buy the physical on PS5. That'd be good.
Yeah.
So now where does that go?
I think I wanted at 3, actually.
Yeah, I think that's a great choice because after Celeste, I think you'd have a mid-range game followed by a mid-range game. I think it'd be nice having a shorter, What Remains of Edith Finch, and then a mid-range.
Yeah. Cool.
Death's Door.
I think I already know what my secret game for that episode is, too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What is it?
I'm not telling you.
All right.
No Wadhams for unpacking.
Okay. Is it my turn to pick one? Do
I guess
one?
You get the last one.
Sounds good. I don't know if I want to go with a Metroidvania.
Yeah.
Disco. I don't know if I want to. I kind of want to pick something that we previously vetted, like one of those 7 that we were talking about at the start, but we've already got from that list Hollow Knight, Momodora.
Whether or not it was,
Celeste, and Death's Door. We've got 4 of the 7.
Yeah, that's so.
I don't think Chris Tales is a good choice.
Chris Tales is a either opener or closer.
I don't think Return of the Obra Dinn is a good choice because we've got other adventure-y, puzzle-y games.
Okay.
It's still very unique looking, though.
Yeah.
And then Kentucky Route Zero seems like an adventure game in the way that maybe Disco Elysium is kind of touching. And I don't know.
I think if you chose Kentucky Route, I think it's far enough away from Disco Elysium that's not a big conflict.
How long is Kentucky Route Zero? Oh no, it's splitting up all the chapters, all the acts.
Oh, gross.
TV edition?
Yeah, do that.
Okay, it's just saying like single player 8.5 hours to 13.5 hours, but then it breaks it down into Act 1, 1 hour, Act 2, 1 hour, Act 3, 2 hours.
That's
it's
so
doing
weird.
That.
Why?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Okay, here we go. Single player 8.5, completionist 14.5.
Okay, I think that's reasonable based on how many hours we already have.
I think that would be really good squeezed between a platformer and a Metroidvania.
Okay.
Are you good with that?
I'm good with that if you're good with that.
Yeah.
You did jump straight to that like 7 previously vetted, so I want to make sure you don't miss anything that you're forgetting that you're excited about. But
I think 12 Minutes is a mystery puzzle game in the way that like Return of the Obra Dinn is also kind of an adventure mystery puzzle game.
Okay.
So, and those would be in close proximity roughly.
Okay.
So that's the only thing keeping me from picking Obra Dinn.
Okay.
But man, I'm excited about playing that one day. I haven't bought it yet too. So whereas I have bought Kentucky Route.
Okay.
So that's another
incentive.
Me. Yeah, let's do Kentucky Route.
Okay. How many of these? I have 2 and a third one is easily accessible.
I have Hollow Knight. I have What Remains. I don't have Death's Door. I think I have Doki Doki. I have Celeste. I have Kentucky. I have Momodora. I don't have 12 Minutes. I don't have Unpacking. And I don't think I have Disco Elysium. So I have roughly half.
Most of these, over half of these have physical copies too. So that's interesting at least.
And just a clarification thing. We're doing Kentucky Route Zero TV edition.
Okay.
Which is the console version, right? It's
right.
not the PC version.
I don't know.
We'll both do like the PlayStation version, right?
Yeah.
The one thing that we're not representing in this list is like a roguelike. And I guess the only thing we have to choose from there is a Binding of an Isaac, which I'm fine with skipping that.
Yeah.
Since it's not our favorite genre to begin with. Like we did Hades, which I loved, but I think we still have a good mix here.
I don't see anything on here that I would like to replace. If we did maybe swap it out for Celeste, but I don't want to swap it out for Celeste, you know?
So, all right, here's our order. Episode 1, Hollow Knight. which is a Metroidvania. Episode 2, What Remains of Edith Finch, an adventure game. Episode 3, Death's Door, an action-adventure. Episode 4, Doki Doki Literature Club Plus, a horror/romance/visual novel. Celeste at number 5, which is a platformer. Kentucky Route Zero TV Edition, which is an adventure game for Episode 6. Episode 7, Momodora Reverie Under the Moonlight, which is a Metroidvania. Episode 8, 12 Minutes, which is a mystery puzzle game. Episode 9 is Unpacking, which is an organization sim. And Episode 10 is Disco Elysium, an RPG. I think that's a great lineup.
I think that looks like a good season
so
2.
Good. Yes, that looks so great. I am jazzed.
Yeah.
I love this. I wouldn't change anything here. I think we can end it there.
Cool.
That will finally bring us to the end of our episode and season of
Wow.
Underplayed.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to you. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey.
Great pleasure.
Yes, I look forward to season 2 very much. You can find more of our episodes at kzum.org/underplayed. Our music was composed by Jack Rodenberg. Our art comes from Onimochi. My name's Bo Po. You can find me on Twitter at BoPo. That's BO_PO.
And you can catch me catching up on all these trophies I missed this season on Twitch as DiscoCola and on Twitter.
Next season, we'll open with 2 secret games, and our first featured review will cover Hollow Knight, a Metroidvania developed by Team Cherry. Until then, everyone, you keep on playing.